So I battled all week concerning what the Lord would have me talk about today. As the week progressed and I watched the media and all the events happening around me, I began to see more clearly. It was Franklin D. Roosevelt that said one time, "Governments can err. Presidents do make mistakes. But the immortal Dante tells us that divine justice weighs the sins of the cold-blooded and the sins of the warm-hearted in different scales. Better the occasional faults of a government that lives in a spirit of charity than the consistent omissions of a government frozen in the ice of its own indifference." He mentions charity. I remember the first time I realized what charity meant, because you read the King James Version, it says charity. And then you realize in 1 Corinthians 13, love is what charity is. I would like to think that our country is a nation of love. I would like to think that we are with a mind of charity and peace. But like he said, a government that lives in a spirit of charity rather than the consistent omissions of a government frozen because of its own indifference, because it can't figure it out, because it can't settle on the matter. We are in a time of great criticism being cast upon our government, and rightfully so. There's plenty to be disturbed by. But the thing which is disturbing most to me is how gullible we are, especially as a people. I commented about this the other day on Facebook. Learn to think for yourself. I hear and I see all the stuff that has been happening around us, and so many of us are so naive and narrow-minded that all we can do is follow what the media defines each circumstance as being. I wish I had answers too to a lot of the disturbing things in my country, but I refuse to join the bandwagon without seeing something more than just the one-sided media coverage and commentary. We must remember that each of us are fallible. None of us are completely right. Let us be more open to search out the truth for ourselves rather than trusting what Google tells us or even what has been passed down to us. Let us search out thoroughly before we cast judgment. Who and what am I talking about? All of it. North Korea, President Trump, Charlottesville, the history, the rumors, everything. In everything we must seek truth. Not just what we see or hear, but truth. We must open our minds and stop being so narrow-minded. Form our own thoughts without everyone else's provoking. Again, watch out for bandwagons. I ask myself, why do I like Elvis Presley so much? And people that are like him. Took me years to figure it out. My answer? Because they move to the sound of their own drum. So I have my drum, I'm humming my tune. I'm not asking for anybody to join me, but just think, if each of us played our own tune, maybe, just maybe, we would have a harmony that sounds better than the most beautiful orchestra in the world. But to do that, we have to play our own tune. We have to actually be ourselves, which means embracing who we are. Now, could that be the issue? Could we be scared of ourselves? So today, more than anything else, and I'll go all over the place, I'm sure, but I want to discuss the bandwagon. The bandwagon. That's the title of my message, the bandwagon. What is the bandwagon? A popular party, a faction, a cause that attracts growing support, often used in such phrases as jump on the bandwagon. With social media running at full force, we see this every single day. Debate.org says that 84% of people believe that the media influences them. So we're telling on ourselves. Take into consideration all the news coverage alone. We develop our opinions and judgments based off of what we see in the news. And it doesn't have to be on TV. We watch it on our phones now. It's everywhere. We see the news 24/7. It affects how we vote, how we eat, where we shop, how we think. It affects how we think. The conclusions we come up to. So I followed that post on Facebook the following day with this: food for thought. How come an attack like what has happened in Barcelona is called a terrorist attack? But what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia is just simply an attack or a race riot. Aren't both terrorism? Maybe a hate group is another name for a terrorist group. See what I mean about the bandwagon? See what I mean about letting media define our thoughts and our reflections? You don't have to be a member of ISIS to be a terrorist. But the media pretty much tells us, oh, well, that's just a hate group, but no, this is a terrorist over here because they're foreign, or they're from another country, or they have a bigger clientele, whatever the case may be. So why would I center a sermon around a bandwagon? Because as Christians, God did not expect us to be a gullible people willing to fall for anything. There's several scriptures. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 3 through 4 says, "For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wandering off into myths." Proverbs 1:22, "How long will you gullible people love being so gullible? How long will you mockers find joy in your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge?" Proverbs 1:32, "For the waywardness of the naive will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them." Ephesians 5:6 says, "Let no man deceive you with vain words, for because of these things comes the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience." 1 Corinthians 14:20, "Brothers and sisters, stop thinking like children. In regard to evil, be infants, but in your thinking be adults." 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 18 through 20. "Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you thinks that he is wise in his age, let him become a fool, that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is folly with God. For it is written, He catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile." Proverbs 14:15 says, "The simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thoughts to his steps." To sum it up, the Lord doesn't want us to be idiots and fall for anything and everything. I prefer not to talk about politics from the pulpit because I was taught not to. Although I do feel it necessary, considering the recent events as well as the general consensus concerning where we are as a country. I am quick to tell you how I feel about my country, as well as its leaders. My favorite president is Franklin Roosevelt, but even he had his shortcomings. In my lifetime, we have had Reagan, we've had Bush, Clinton, Obama, and now Trump. All of whom I see having shortcomings, and some of whom even having poor leadership skills. But we must remember also that it takes a lot of people to keep this country in motion. Each person plays a part. And even though the president is the face of it, it doesn't mean he's actually running it. Nor does it mean that the president, whoever it is at any given time, is actually running it into the ground. It's easy to place blame and point fingers, but who of us are really involved? Are any of us doing anything besides complaining? What are we doing that is productive? Are we part of the problem or part of the solution? I see so many pointing fingers at President Trump and rushing to quick judgments. I have no idea what that man believes or where his head is at. I don't have any opinion other than that he is the president, and we are where we are, and we should all pray and support in any way we can. If we feel he needs to be removed from office, we should support that. Or if he is to remain, we ought to pray for him and support in any way we can while he is in office. Either way, it's our country. We live in it. It's our duty to do something. When the election occurred in November, I could not stomach the candidates, and I refused to vote for a candidate that I didn't believe in. So, like Pontius Pilate, I chose to wash my hands clean of the election and pray for the best. Some would disagree with that, I'm sure, but not voting was what I felt was the best decision for myself. We must remember that our country is much bigger than a president. Our country is made of people like you and me. We make up this country, and it is up to us what we do with it, especially how we choose to represent Christ in doing so. I told you this sermon to be all over the place.
That's all right.
And it is. But that's because the subject matter is so much bigger than something we can just talk about and one day turn around and expect it to just be okay. Because it's not. It has taken years just to get where we are now. And it's still a mess. We are in constant need to be reminded that God has endowed us with a mind to choose. We have been given the ability to think and reason. There is no need for us to jump on the various bandwagons among us. We should be more than just a follower. Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16 says, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trodden underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid, nor do men light a lamp and put it under a bushel, but they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everybody in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." We are the influence and the trendsetters. We are the movers and the shakers. Not the media or the events happening around us. We are the leaders. We are the ones shaping this country. At least we ought to be. Concerning the events recently in Charlottesville, Virginia, Barcelona, and even here in the Triad, we must start doing and stop sitting. It's not about a protest or walking down the street. It's about us making change take place. We must take the atmosphere around us captive, just as the groups of people of hate have done. We must take the atmosphere by the Spirit of the Lord with the Spirit of love as the driving force. It is important to evaluate our hearts and not allow ourselves to fall into the same category as those who represent hate. Being against something does not mean we allow ourselves to hate the people. We must still show love and pray and intercede for those who are lost, and especially for those who have been given over to a fallen mind. Remember, once again, God has given us the right to choose. He has given us the right to choose to sin or not, what to eat, what to say, how we deal with others, all of the above. We have so much freedom. Back to doing something. We must get involved. We scream and complain about how we dislike this, that, and the third, but we sit and do nothing. We have become extra secure in our American comfort. Extra secure. I was watching a documentary by Oliver Stone called The Untold History of the United States. And as I got to the part about the atomic bomb drop in 1945, I automatically thought about North Korea and the current state of world relations in relevance to our own country. I watched how so many people were involved in the nation's progress during World War II, and I thought to myself, what would happen if we were attacked? What would happen if the shoe was on the other foot? What if we were on the end of an atomic bomb? What would happen if we lost our comfort? Would we still be sitting waiting for our phones to fix themselves or waiting for the government to fix it? The television's out too. Oh, are you going to sit or call the cable company? How comfortable have we become? Did we forget the casualties brought to us this far? Not just the casualties of war, but about the casualties of slavery, the civil rights movement. Anything that's ever stood for anything in this country. What about the casualties of people who had died for what was right? Did we forget? I like what Dick Van Dyke said. Why do people hate? Hate is such a terrible waste of time. I don't think people who hate should receive the attention they seem to garner in the media. Entire cable networks have been created to hate each other. Our political system seems to have devolved into one side hating the other. I like to ask, why do you hate? It is so much easier to help. It's the easiest thing in the world. Help can mean writing a check. It can also mean sharing a smile or saying hello. I want to end by saying this, and hopefully I can live up to this to myself. At some point, you have to reclaim your life. Your life isn't defined by some circumstance or the people around you. Take control of your own mind and your actions. Don't let the mess you see distract you from doing what God would have you to do. Reclaim your life. Jump off the bandwagon and reclaim your life. Amen. Amen.